Jones here with Doctor's Choice. Today's video, we're going to answer a common question I often get asked by sellers, and that is, Greg, I'm a few years out from selling. What are a few things that I need to be doing in order to put myself in a good position? And let's dive right into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is staying on the throttle. That's the easiest one, and it's the most important one of everything I'm going to say today, right? So if you don't do anything else I mentioned in this presentation, the number one thing you need to do is at least stay on the throttle. Now, I understand as you see the light at the end of the tunnel for retirement, you may start taking more vacations. You might start sending out procedures that you don't like to do. Gosh, Greg, I can do anterior root canals or posterior root canals, but I just don't like doing it. So I stopped doing them. I hear these things all the time. So what happens? The production drops. So you may say, well, Greg, I want to start taking more vacation time as I phase into retirement. That's fine, but don't call me and tell me and complain about the practice evaluation when you start taking more vacations. So if you're one of those people that needs every dollar of your practice sale for retirement, it's not just the icing on the cake, then you better stay on throttle because it's something that I see time and time again. So what does this do? One, it's going to hurt your evaluation. Two, also a buyer's bank, they don't like to see drop in production. Okay. So if your numbers drop more than 10%, it's going to raise a red flag for the bank. And the buyer actually may have trouble getting a loan on your practice. Aside from that, just know and understand when we do a practice evaluation, we're looking at the last 3 years. And we're doing a weighted average. So your most recent year is going to have the highest weight. Number two, stop taking cash. So this is a complete gray area to discuss. I know some of you may do it on a small scale. Some of you may not do it at all. Some of you may do it on a large scale. I've seen it all. I'm not the IRS. I don't care. But let's say it's 5 p.m. It's Friday night. You and your significant other are going to go out to dinner. And you look in the cash register and you have $200 in cash in there from the day. You may take that and not report it and just, use that to pay for your dinner and drinks for the night. Again, that's fine, but understand and realize when we do an evaluation, we are only looking at your tax return of money you reported. So know and understand is, you're thinking about retirement and that timeline is coming up that you need to start reporting all your cash. Again, I know this is a complete gray area to talk about, but it's important because it happens all the time. And if you think a buyer is just going to take your word for it, hey, Greg and Dr. Buyer, I know what's on my tax return, but I took $50,000 cash last year. You should pay me on that. It's never going to happen. No, it's too big of numbers. No one's going to trust you in that regard with someone you don't really know. Number three, control your overhead. Okay. So this applies to everyone. It's not necessarily for someone thinking about retirement and selling their practice. But the two largest expenses in a dental practice are staff and payroll, okay, and rent. Those payroll and rent are your two largest expenses. So ask yourself, when's the last time, if you're leasing, when's the last time you renegotiated your rent? I deal with it all the time. I run into people and they haven't renegotiated their lease in 20 years. They didn't know that they could renegotiate the terms in a lease. So when your term is up, typically a commercial lease is done in 5-year increments. You can actually renegotiate the rental rate back down the market rate because you typically have a 3% increase per year. Again, most people don't know that. So you can. So you need to make sure that you're paying a fair rental. Okay. Two, and I'm not telling you to go fire your office manager, but I see it all the time where hygienists are making 70, 80 grand, office managers are making 70, 80 grand, and it significantly impacts the profitability of your practice. Now, with that said, I will say there are definitely staff members out there, hygienists, assistants, whatever it may be, that are worth, paying over market rate, but most of them aren't. So if you have a superstar and they're selling more dentistry for you and they do a great job, that's fine. I'm not telling you to go fire those people. It's those people that you know are overpaid. They do a subpar job and they've just been with the practice for a few years. Maybe take that jump and see if you can find someone else. And I know it's easier said than done, but you have to manage your overhead. A lot of dentists aren't business people, but you have to manage your overhead because the number one variable of a practice valuation, what do you think it's going to be? Cash flow. It's the number one thing. Next, staying modern with technology. So, the older generation, the retiring docs, they're not a millennial like me. And, my generation, a new iPhone comes out, we have to have it. We always want the latest and greatest. And, the baby boomers, probably the people that are listening to this video and watching this that are looking to retirement, that just wasn't your generation. And it's fine. It's no big deal. But just know, if you still have film radiography, and again, I run into it, believe it or not, more often than you would think, these doctors, your average buyer that's 2 to 7 years out of dental school, they don't even know how to use film radiography anymore. It's a thing of the past. They've never, in dental schools, they don't even have film anymore, right? So they don't even know how to use it. So if you're still film radiography, step number one, you got to go digital. And I know it's a jump. You may not want to learn something new, but maybe fun and exciting. You got to stay positive. You got to think about things on the bright side. Okay. And then the newest thing that I keep hearing time and time again from buyers is everyone wants a panoramic machine or a CBCT. So if you don't have a panoramic machine, you can buy a used panoramic machine nowadays with a warranty, digital, for $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, somewhere in that ballpark. CBCTs, you can buy a brand new CBCT CAT scan for around $60,000, $65,000 nowadays. So, the prices on panoramic machines, CEFs, and CBCTs are going down dramatically. It's amazing. Technology just snowballs. So consider that as well. That's going to be a great addition to your practice. The last thing is, and this is the easiest thing to do, is how's the decor of your office? When's the last time you put a fresh coat of paint on the walls? Are the floors 20 years old? So, you could spend, believe it or not, $10,000 to $15,000 and dramatically change the appearance of your office. Okay. And there's a few reasons why these things I mentioned, it's almost a no-brainer because one, you get to enjoy it, right? So again, new and exciting. Maybe it'll give a breath of fresh air into your practice. Two, it's going to be a tax write-off. Three, it's going to increase the value of your practice and the saleability of your practice, right? So why not? Raising fees. That's the next subject we're going to talk about. So if you're not raising your fees 3% bi-yearly every 2 years, you need to. So again, I meet with sellers that haven't raised their fees in 5, 10 years. Quick example for you to understand. A $90 pro fee versus a $100 pro fee. If you have 1,000 pro fees a year, that's a difference. Oh, sorry, I should have muted this thing. That's a difference of $10,000 for the year. That's substantial. I don't know about you, but I would love to have an extra $10,000 in my pocket every year. Last one here, and again, something that a lot of people don't know about, is you can actually renegotiate the insurance reimbursement. So if you have a PPO or HMO-based practice, you can actually hire a company, and I have some names, so you can email me, reach out to me, I can give you some recommendations, but you can actually renegotiate the reimbursement, believe it or not. So you might hire some of these companies and they can get you $30, $40, $50, $60 more for every crown you do. And that adds up significantly. So for those of you that are a C Corp, let's talk about tax entities. I'm talking quick because I want this video to be somewhat short and sweet. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But let's talk about if you're a C Corp. If you're a C Corp, I'm not, disclosure, I am not an accountant. I'm not a CPA. I am not giving tax advice. You need to reach out to your CPA and consultant, but you are potentially subject to double taxation, right? That's not good. So if you change your entity type 5 years before you sell, because that's how long it takes for you not to be under those guidelines still, you might be able to get out of that. So you need to have a plan for a tax strategy with your accountant. So if you're a C Corp, know and understand that you need to have a plan for success there. to hopefully minimize your tax implication. So reach out to your CPA and accountant. All right, next subject, family members in the practice. Extremely common. The spouse of the doctor is the hygienist, office manager, assistant, whatever it may be. What's the issue with that? The issue is typically when the doctor retires, what do you think the spouse wants to do? They want to leave alongside with the doctor. They're not going to stay and work, right? So now you have the doctor exiting the practice and you have, let's say, a front desk or an office manager exiting the practice. That's going to scare a buyer. That's not a good thing. That's going to, if anything, make their transition, a little rougher. So my suggestion is if that's the case, you have a family member in the practice, let's get them out of the practice 1 year in advance of when you're ready to retire and sell your practice, right? That'll give, the buyer that comfort level that, someone's been with the practice for a year at the front desk. They've already seen a round or 2 rounds of the patients come through. So that's a huge suggestion. Timing. Underestimating or overestimating timing is an issue. So every market is different. So our company, we're based in Florida. Luckily in Florida, for the most part, it's a complete seller's market, which means in layman's terms, too many buyers, not enough sellers. So for the major metropolitan areas of Florida, if you have a quality practice, they are selling for top dollar and they're selling quick. And quick being relative, I would say 6 months or less, start to finish. Okay. But that's not always the case. Don't assume and guess. The number one suggestion I have for you is to reach out to a practice broker like myself, years in advance and say, hey, here's, get an evaluation done first and foremost, but also give them a tour of your office and let them give you some ideas, if there are any, as to what you need to be doing and change to make your practice more appealing to a buyer and to maximize your sale. Okay. Now I understand it's, a lot of these, no one wants to deal with a salesperson. They think they're just going to try and sell them something they don't need or try and make them sell their practice sooner rather than later. Yeah, it might be the case for some salespeople and brokers. I just wish that more people would reach out to us in advance so that I can make my life easier and your life better from various standpoints. And people just don't do it. Example, I have a seller that wanted to sell and has practiced 30 years. He got offered a part-time job at a dental school. And he already took the job. He calls me and goes, Greg, I took this job. I have to sell my practice in 3 months. And he knew he was going to take this job. I mean, it was a sweet gig for him to phase into retirement. And he loved teaching and helping younger dentists. Problem is I had 3 months to sell this practice. So what do you think happened? We had to fire sale it. I just wish he would have reached out to me sooner so that we could have, put the practice on the market before and ultimately got him what I think $100,000, $150,000 more for his practice if we had time. So that's a lot of money. I think everyone would like to have an extra 100, 150 grand in their pocket. So plan accordingly. That's really the takeaway. I hope this video helps. If you have any questions, it's Greg with Doctor's Choice. Feel free to give me a call. Happy to help. Thanks.